You don't deserve that seat, Tara snapped, her voice slicing through the boardroom like a bad Yelp review with a personal vendetta. 12 people. Long glass table. Quarterly strategy session. And me, Emily Thornton, 13-year veteran, founder of the actual systems, Tara's shiny little dashboard was still misreporting, left sitting there like a glitch in her PowerPoint. Her words hit with that crisp, calculated sting only a woman who wears stilettos on concrete can deliver. The room paused. Not the good kind of pause, either. That gross, polite silence people use right before they pretend they didn't just watch someone get mugged in daylight. The CFO cleared his throat like his tie was suddenly strangling him. The HR director blinked 4 times in 1 second. And Todd from finance, guy who once cried when I fixed a payroll mistake that almost got him evicted, just stared at his coffee like it owed him an explanation. I didn't respond. I didn't even blink. I just gathered my notes, calmly clicked my pen shut, and pushed back my chair. It scraped the floor like a slow, dragging guillotine. Now, listen, I get it. Most folks just tap through these stories like they're checking for parking spots. But if you've made it this far, me and the team a small favor. Tap that subscribe button, maybe leave a like. 93% of people don't, and frankly, Tara would hate knowing this story got attention. And that's motivation enough, right? All right, back to it. I walked out without a word, not because I didn't have anything to say, but because I already said it. Not out loud, but in Lease Clause 9b, subsection 3, paragraph 2. They just didn't know it yet. Tara's little coup had been brewing for months. Ever since the merger brought her in from that West Coast sales circus, she treated the place like her personal talent show. She had her buzzwords, her self-congratulatory growth initiatives, and a rotating stable of yes people who nodded like dashboard bobbleheads every time she made a chart. Never mind that most of her revenue came from legacy accounts I'd onboarded a decade ago. Tara was the future. I was the stale leftovers of operational yesterday. They stopped inviting me to executive syncs, started calling me back office in strategy memos. My calendar, once packed tighter than TSA lines on Thanksgiving, was now mostly blank white space, occasionally punctuated with vague touch base invites that somehow always got rescheduled. 2 weeks ago, I was moved out of my corner office and reassigned to a room next to the loading dock. No window, no ventilation, just the ambient scent of diesel fumes and passive-aggressive toner. HR called it workspace optimization. I called it what it was, exile. And now this, Tara publicly erasing me like a typo in front of the board. I knew better than to argue. That's the trick they never teach you in MBA school. You don't win power games by barking louder. You win by owning the field. And they were all standing on mine. They just didn't know it yet. As I passed the reception desk, my phone buzzed, delivery confirmation from an overnight courier. The envelope I'd sent to the CFO had been received and signed for. No subject line. Just a single folded page, notarized, stamped, and very, very patient. I poured myself a cup of breakroom coffee so burnt it should have had a hazmat label, then returned to my windowless shoebox. On the desk, a new file folder. Tara's assistant must have dropped it off. Side, agenda notes for the next strategy retreat, a renovation proposal for the East Wing, and a copy of a lease inquiry addressed to Dockside Properties LLC. My name wasn't on it, not directly, but the ink was mine. And the next meeting, oh, I'd be there. Whether they thought I deserved a seat or not, they didn't even give me a box. Just a passive-aggressive calendar, invite labeled office transition facilities access required. No explanation. No smiley face. No warning that when I showed up to what used to be my space, corner window, decent chair, whiteboard full of workflows I'd built from scratch, the door was already open. Half-packed. New desk plates waiting on the credenza. Tara's favorite business strategist was standing inside, sizing up the lighting like she was picking out a prom dress. I didn't say anything. I just turned around and walked, past the fake ferns, past the quote wall someone thought would boost morale. Hustle beats talent when talent doesn't hustle. In Comic Sans, someone should be jailed. Past the double doors and down the side hallway, where facilities dumped forgotten printers and broken ergonomic chairs. That's where they put me. Room 3CD. A glorified janitor's closet with a flickering light and a window that wasn't a window at all. Just a poster of a blue sky taped to a cinderblock wall like some kind of psychological experiment. The desk wobbled. The outlet sparked when I plugged in my laptop. And the HVAC vent rattled like a dying kazoo every time the warehouse truck reversed into the dock. My nameplate hadn't made the move. No memo, no explanation. Just silence and stale coffee. And no one said a thing. Meetings I used to run now filled up without me. Invites disappeared like smoke. Tasks trickled down from people I used to train. The system's dashboard, my dashboard, now showed filters and KPIs I didn't recognize, maintained by someone who still called PowerPoint slides decks. Once, I tried chiming in on a group call, suggested a correction to a misreported churn rate. Tara muted me mid-sentence and said, "Let's let the new team own this, Emily. Own it." Right, like squatters own a penthouse just because the front desk stopped checking IDs. But I didn't protest, didn't call HR, didn't spiral into Slack rants or whisper conspiracies in the break room like the rest of the lifers who got iced out. Instead, I got quiet. There's a kind of power in being underestimated, like hiding in plain sight. And Tara, for all her projection-clicking, jargon-huffing confidence, had one fatal flaw: she thought the game ended when she went around. But I had a longer memory and a signed lease. Because 2 years ago, while Tara was busy blowing up her LinkedIn profile with photos from some women in fintech yacht brunch, I was fighting for my name in a courtroom. My divorce was a war. He wanted the house, the stocks, the good knives. I wanted what he didn't see coming: my equity, my piece of Carson Ridge. And when the dust settled, I sold everything else and turned it into something no one could take from me. Real estate. Specifically, this building. Through Dockside Properties LLC, a trust so buried under paperwork it might as well have been buried with Jimmy Hoffa, I bought the entire damn structure. Every floor, every outlet, every inch of recycled carpet they walked across. And now, as I sat in my broom closet office next to a water-stained filing cabinet from 1998, courier knocked. He handed me a thick envelope, manila, labeled in black marker, Dockside Properties LLC. No one else in the building would have known what it was, but I did. Inside, copies of the renovation proposal Tara had fast-tracked without facilities clearance, blueprints with handwriting on the margins, a second envelope addressed to the same trust containing an invoice. They were planning to rip out half the east wing, but they'd sent the bill to the landlord. Me signed the receipt with a smile. Quiet, steady, same ballpoint pen I'd used on the offer letter 2 years back. They'd displaced me, but they were still dancing on my floor. The last conversation I had with my ex-husband was about a set of steak knives. Not the kids, not the vacation house in Hilton Head, not the brokerage account or the guest cabin or the rental in Asheville. No, he wanted the Japanese steel knives we got as a wedding gift, because apparently, even in divorce, men like to cut deep. He'd lawyered up fast, flashy guy. Instagram bio said father, entrepreneur, wine guy. He wanted everything: the real estate, the Tesla, my grandmother's china. Even tried to throw shade at my Carson Ridge equity, saying you were just salaried operations, those shares should count as joint. That's when I knew I had to go feral, so I did. I'd spent 13 years inside Carson Ridge. I knew its bones, its blind spots, its bloated cap table better than most board members. I'd been one of the first dozen employees, back when we worked out of a coworking space above a vape shop. I'd built their vendor pipeline, their logistics network, their entire operational heartbeat. So when I found out the company leased its headquarters, I saw an opportunity. Because unlike my ex, I didn't need the spotlight. I needed leverage. I called my old college roommate, Lauren, now a real estate attorney with a flair for hiding assets like a magician hides doves. She poured me a glass of room temperature Pinot and asked one question: how ruthless do you want to be? I sold the beach house, liquidated the 401k, cashed in my Apple stock like a trader at a tech rally. Everything went into one funnel: Dockside Properties LLC, a Delaware shell company. No social media, no digital paper trail, no flashy logos, just a name, a P.O. box, and a silent charter that could scare off any lazy due diligence. The building was in limbo. Carson Ridge had been negotiating to buy it outright, but the property owner got cold feet. When they pulled out, Dockside swooped in with a full cash offer, 30-day close. Done. No one asked questions. They just saw the money. Lauren grinned as she slid the final paperwork across the cafe table, her red nails clicking the edge of the folder. Someday, she said, they'll realize who owns the ground under them. I never changed the layout of my new office, never touched the wood paneling or the tragic breakroom art. I didn't need to, because while Tara and her pack of marketing hyenas were busy renaming departments and rolling out vision alignment initiatives, I was sitting in budget meetings pretending not to notice that the rent was quietly climbing. Every time the company expanded a floor or added a new server room, I got paid, and I reinvested every penny. Dockside bought the parking lot next, then the adjacent lot that Tara's team used for overflow events. They threw summer mixers on my gravel. They handed out ice cream sandwiches on my property line. They didn't know. That was the best part, because real revenge isn't slamming doors or screaming in conference rooms. Real revenge is letting them hang their promotional banners on your walls and watching the screws slowly strip the drywall. It's approving their catering orders, because they still route them through admin accounts. It's showing up to budget calls they forgot to uninvite you from and listening like you're deaf while quietly writing down invoice numbers. It's holding the deed to the building while they complain about HVAC. The divorce didn't ruin me. It remade me. I wasn't the wife, I wasn't the doormat in operations. I was the landlord in the shadows, and the bill was coming due. The renovation request landed on my desk like a frat boy applying for a mortgage, loud, overconfident, and missing half the required documents. Subject line, renovation budget, East Wing expansion initiative rocket. Body text, per Tara's request, please expedite approval for build-out. Target completion, Q3. Attachment, a PDF with more buzzwords than line items. Synergy alcove. Collaboration den, Mindspace pod, no signature from facilities, no permit trail, no city compliance forms, just an invoice north of $1 million and a handwritten sticky note that said, "Can you run this through before Thursday?" Tara wants it cleared before the all hands. Of course she did. The East Wing wasn't just any part of the building. It was the oldest, most temperamental stretch of the property, dodgy plumbing, antique wiring, asbestos insulation playing peekaboo from the ceiling tiles. Any contractor with half a conscience would have laughed her off the phone. But Tara didn't believe in red flags. She believed in branding. Her plan: tear out half the wing, install modern spaces, and slap the company logo on everything, and all without running a single step through facilities. Naturally, the invoice got routed to me, because Emily still handles admin stuff, right? That's what Brent from Strategic Ops said in the break room, with his usual smirk and a mouthful of someone else's yogurt. I nodded, smiled, and carried the folder back to my shoebox by the dock. Then I BCC'd Marcus. Marcus, my property counsel. Quiet man. Former city inspector turned compliance wizard. The kind of guy who can spot a zoning violation from a pixelated PDF. Once had a contractor banned from bidding in 3 counties over a crooked stairwell. His reply came in under 10 minutes. Don't stop them. Approve everything. Keep the paper trail clean. And start charging escalation fees per Clause 6D. I did exactly that. Signed the invoice. Marked it approved for internal routing. Re-forwarded the thread to accounting. Added no comments. Just my initials in the lower right corner. And then I smiled, because while Tara thought she was redecorating her empire, what she was actually doing was violating lease terms on a structure she didn't own. Clause 6D in the contract stated any renovation exceeding $250,000 without landlord approval would trigger a rent reassessment. Immediate, retroactive, and non-negotiable. Add in the unauthorized electrical rewiring. That fell under Clause 7C, hazardous modifications. Add in the signage initiative they snuck into the marketing budget. Clause 5B, branding approvals. Every change they made without asking me, the landlord, was another link in the chain I was wrapping around their ankles. They still hadn't connected the dots. They thought Dockside Properties was some faceless real estate firm playing hardball. They were prepping to negotiate with the owners after Tara's vision got installed and the invoices ballooned. Thought if they added enough glass and beanbags, the building would magically feel like theirs. But no amount of open concept layouts or gender-neutral bathrooms was going to change the name on the deed. So I let them build. I watched them hold meetings about acoustic paneling and corporate feng shui. I listened to Tara complain about the smell of paint drifting into her temporary office suite, installed illegally, by the way. I approved every check, signed every order, smiled through every budget review, and every time I signed a document, I saved a copy. I wasn't the admin. I was the goddamn groundskeeper, and they were fertilizing their own noose. The lease renewal packet hit their inboxes at 8:01 a.m. sharp on a Monday, prime time for maximum executive heartburn. Subject: Carson Ridge HQ Renewal Terms Proposal Dockside Properties LLC Attachment. A clean, 3-page PDF. No fluff. No branding. Just facts. Page 1, base rent increase of 32%. Page 2, clause amendments including mandatory landlord approval for structural changes, occupancy limits per fire code, and signage usage restrictions, specifically revoking the company's unilateral right to place or modify branded visuals on the building's exterior. Page 3, signature lines. 1 already signed. Dated 3 days ago. By Dockside's managing trustee. 807, the glass doors to the executive wing had slammed shut behind a flurry of click-clack heels and confused shouts of call legal. And who the hell is Dockside? The first to break the silence was Rhonda from Risk and Compliance. She read through the clauses, closed the PDF, and muttered, "This isn't a proposal. It's a ransom note with professional kerning." Tara, predictably, scoffed like someone had just questioned her birthright. "Oh, please," she said, flipping her acrylic nails against her tumbler of cold brew. "We'll just buy the damn building. Probably save money in the long run." She turned to legal like they were the concierge at a boutique hotel. "Start the process. I want a list of property owners and broker contacts by tomorrow. We'll make an offer by end of week." Legal didn't move. Daniel, their lead counsel, usually unbothered by Tara's theatrics, looked like he'd just been asked to forge a passport with crayons. "Already checked," he said. "Buildings held by a closed trust. Parent entity is Dockside Properties LLC, registered agent in Delaware. All mail goes to a forwarding service in Ohio." "So what?" Tara snapped. "You're telling me we can't find out who owns the building we've occupied for almost a decade?" Daniel sighed. "We tried. Ownership records stop at the trust. Completely legal. Rock solid." He hesitated, flipping to the third page. They retained full exterior branding rights in the original lease. That includes signage, logo displays, and naming rights. Silence. You could hear the HVAC kick on in the ceiling. Then Todd, yes, yogurt thief Todd, tried to lighten the mood with a chuckle. "Geez, we should at least know who this Dockside firm even is." All heads turned toward me. I was in the room for meeting minutes. Admin duty. Back row seat. Standard issue. I smiled, didn't say a word, just kept typing. Tara waved her hand dismissively. "Whatever, let's lowball them. Get them on the phone, throw in some incentives, equity if they want it. If we're going to let them strong-arm us, we might as well play chess, not checkers." Daniel shook his head. "They already declined a buyout offer last year, through a brokerage, rejected without counter. No explanation." Rhonda added, "That signage clause means we legally can't even put our new logo redesign on the front facade without explicit permission. Which, as of this moment, we don't have." Someone muttered, "Jesus Christ," under their breath. Tara paced like a caged influencer between campaign shoots. I closed my laptop slowly. In that moment, I didn't need to gloat. I didn't need to say a damn thing, because the numbers were doing all the talking. They were being outplayed. The worst part? They didn't even know what game they were in. That's the thing about leverage. You don't swing it. You let it sit in the corner of the room, humming quietly like a space heater no one notices until their feet catch fire. And my flame, it had just started to flicker. She caught me in the break room, of all places. I was just trying to microwave my sad little Tupperware of leftover lasagna. Third day in a row, but who's counting? Tara slid in like a predator with a 401k clause. "Got a second?" she said, all sugar-laced venom, the kind of voice that usually precedes HR documentation or a slap across the face. I didn't answer. I just closed the microwave door, turned around slowly, and leaned against the counter, arms crossed. She had that too big smile on her face, like a cat who just found out the bird feeder's broken. She looked around. No one else in sight, then launched in with fake sympathy dripping from her words like syrup over a rotting pancake. "Emily," she began, I wanted to talk woman to woman. You've been here a long time. You've contributed. But I worry that maybe, just maybe, this place is moving faster than you're comfortable with." I said nothing. I'd learned that Tara filled silence with projections, and sure enough, she kept going. "I've spoken with legal. There's a package on the table. Severance option. Early retirement, generous terms, even a non-disparagement clause. You could take a break. Recenter, travel. I hear Italy's nice this time of year." I raised an eyebrow. "Ah," she said, smile tightening, "or maybe just, finally relax somewhere not so corporate. You've done your time." My mouth stayed shut, but my pulse was beginning to thump in my ears. Then she leaned in, eyes gleaming like she'd just dropped a nuclear punchline. "Besides," she whispered, "both know you can't even afford this building's parking spot." And there it was. I stared at her, at the way she tilted her head slightly, waiting for a reaction. A flinch, a crack, anything. She had no idea what she'd just stepped in. I clicked open the microwave, grabbed my lasagna, and brushed past her. But just as I hit the door, I turned around. "Two things, Tara," I said, calm and quiet. "First, Italy is nice this time of year. Second," I smiled then. "Not a big one, just enough to make her pause. You should probably check who pays for that parking spot before you make assumptions." She blinked, thrown off for just a second, before smirking again. "Right, because admin gets complimentary valet now?" I didn't answer. I walked straight to my office, still next to the loading dock, still vibrating from the HVAC, and pulled out the red folder from my locked drawer. Inside was a single envelope, labeled in clean, old Sharpie, Exhibit of Contents, copies of the initial building purchase agreement, the original rejected buyout offer from Carson Ridge, with notes from their own brokerage, the updated lease clause amendments they'd failed to negotiate, and my personal favorite, a notarized timestamp letter outlining the escalation clauses triggered by Tara's unauthorized renovations. All legal, all clean, all printed on neutral letterhead from Dockside Properties, LLC. I slipped the envelope into the red folder, snapped it shut, and slid it into my satchel next to a thermos of lukewarm coffee and a banana I'd probably forget to eat. Tomorrow was the board meeting. She didn't know it yet, but Tara had just declared war with a slingshot at a tank parade, and I had the keys to the arsenal. The boardroom was dressed for battle, glossy printouts, catered muffins no one would eat, 12 faces pretending they weren't about to throttle each other before lunch. Tara stood near the screen like she was giving a TED talk on hostile takeovers, clicking through slides with the confidence of someone who thought Wi-Fi was a personality trait. Her hair was sharper than her business model, and she had that coked-up swagger that comes from being unopposed too long. Until now. I sat 3 chairs down from her, folder resting quietly on the polished oak table. No grand entrance, no dramatics. Just me in my sensible shoes, sipping burnt coffee and waiting like a loaded revolver in a glove box. The quarterly review was already dragging when Tara pivoted. "I want to quickly address a realignment in personnel," she said, all casual, like she was suggesting decaf. "There's been some confusion about legacy roles and seating assignments." I felt the temperature in the room drop. "Going forward," she continued, "non-critical staff won't be attending strategic sessions. That includes admin and ops support, especially where responsibilities have been redistributed post-merger." She turned toward me, full eye contact, like a sniper taking aim. "Emily, we appreciate your contributions," she said, each word sharper than the last, "but this seat, frankly, it's no longer yours." She paused, letting the silence hang like a guillotine. And then, with the smile of someone who thinks they've delivered the knockout, "You don't deserve that seat." Somewhere across the table, a VP made a low oof sound, one of the new guys from M, and actually winced. I set my coffee down, very gently, then looked at Tara and said 8 words. "Funny," I said, voice steady. "I bought the building." Silence. And then laughter. A confused burst at first, like people weren't sure if they'd heard right. Ripple of chuckles that quickly turned into full-blown snorts from the VP side of the table. One guy dropped his muffin. Tara froze, smile flickering like a bad Zoom connection. "Excuse me," she said. I turned to the CFO. "Could you do me a favor, Richard?" I said, calm as morning fog. "Pull up the property records for this address. Should only take a second." Richard blinked. "You mean like current leaseholder?" "No," I said. "Ownership. Title records. County database. Real time." Now the room was silent again. You could hear the CFO's keyboard clicking like gunfire in the stillness. He squinted at the screen, then leaned in. His brow furrowed, and then he stopped typing, backed up an inch from the monitor. His face changed color, first red, then pale, then the kind of greenish-gray usually reserved for gastrointestinal regrets. He looked at me, then at Tara, then back at the screen. "Oh," he whispered. "Oh no." Tilted. Tara's eyes widened. "What is it?" Richard didn't answer, but I did. "The entity that owns this building," I said, reaching into my satchel, "is Dockside Properties, LLC, full title holder, bought outright 2 years ago. Renovation approvals, usage clauses, signage rights all fall under that umbrella." I slid the red folder across the table. "And the managing trustee for Dockside is me." I didn't raise my voice. I didn't have to. Because in that moment, it didn't matter if Tara screamed or the CFO fainted or the muffins caught fire. I had already won. I didn't just deserve the seat. I owned the floor under it. They held the emergency huddle without me. Of course they did. Right after the boardroom imploded, the execs scrambled into the glass conference room like rats fleeing a sinking cruise ship. Tara led the charge, high heels hammering the tile like war drums. CFO, legal, 2 VPs, even someone from marketing for God knows what reason, all packed into a room where no one could scream without being heard. I didn't follow. I just sat in my chair, calm as a Sunday morning, sipping my coffee and listening to the muffled chaos. Through the frosted glass, I watched their gestures get bigger, more frantic. Tara's hands flailed. The CFO stared at his screen like it owed him an apology. At one point, legal dropped a pen, could see it roll under the table and stay there. No one moved to pick it up. It took them 17 minutes. 17 minutes of meltdown before the CFO stepped out and wordlessly gestured for me to re-enter. Like I was a plumber they'd reluctantly called after trying to fix a burst pipe with a yoga mat and positive vibes. I walked in slowly, folder still in hand. The silence hit me like humidity, thick and suffocating, but manageable. CFO cleared his throat. We've confirmed ownership records. The building is held in trust by Dockside Properties LLC, which is managed by you. I nodded, correct. Legal spoke next, and the lease, the signage clause, the renovation breach penalties. All of that appears to be binding. Also correct. Tara stepped forward, eyes narrowed into little knives. This feels like entrapment, she said, voice low and dangerous. You've been hiding this, sitting in meetings, approving invoices, taking notes while we walked into your little trap. I turned slowly, took a breath. I wasn't hiding, I said. You just weren't looking. She scoffed. Oh, come on, Emily. You sat in every single renovation meeting. You nodded along while we planned expansions. That's deliberate sabotage. I opened the red folder and pulled out a small bundle of documents, clean, crisp, time-stamped. Every invoice you sent was properly routed to Dockside for landlord approval. Everyone was signed off legally by the property manager. All flagged to your team under our standard escalation clause. You didn't read the fine print. I placed the stack on the table. In fact, I added, you've been in violation of 3 separate clauses since the first wall came down, which, by the way, triggered automatic rent reassessment. You're welcome. The room went still again. Eagle flipped through the papers like he was reading his own autopsy. The CFO just muttered, Jesus. I pulled out one last document, a single sheet. Thick paper, letterhead embossed. This, I said, placing it gently before them, was the original offer to sell the building 2 years ago through an intermediary. Purchase price, $6.2 million. Your firm declined. I slid another sheet next to it. Here's the updated valuation post-renovation, based on current market rates and usage violations. New price, $18.7 million. Tara looked like she'd been slapped with a frozen trout. You can't be serious. I'm very serious, I said. You made this building worth more. I just happen to own it. The CFO leaned forward, voice hoarse. And if we don't buy, then you renegotiate the lease, I replied. New terms, new rent. And yes, we'll be revisiting parking access and signage, effective immediately. Legal began scribbling. Tara stood frozen, lips parted like she was buffering. I let the silence stretch. Let them feel the gravity of it, because this wasn't revenge. It was realignment, reality correcting itself. They tried to erase me, box me up next to mop buckets and loading docks. But the walls they built around me, I'd already bought them. The boardroom was quieter than I'd ever heard it. No tapping laptops, no shuffling papers. No performative throat clears from Todd in finance trying to sound important. Just the echo of a single door creaking open as the CFO re-entered with the look of a man who had just read his own obituary and found it accurate. He didn't sit, didn't ask for a vote or a second opinion. Just stood at the head of the table, adjusting his cufflinks like he could delay the inevitable with well-ironed sleeves. We need to renegotiate the lease, he said flatly. Immediately. Miss Thornton. There it was, no dance, no sugarcoating. Just truth landing in the middle of the room like a verdict. Tara didn't speak, didn't blink. Her mouth opened slightly, then closed again like maybe she'd considered arguing but couldn't find the oxygen to fake another word. The bright coral lipstick she always wore looked faded under the boardroom lights. I stood, calm, unrushed. From my satchel, I pulled a cream-colored envelope, thick paper, sealed, labeled, Revised Lease Agreement Carson Ridge HQ. I walked to the table and placed it in front of the CFO with the same grace one might offer a glass of water to a man about to choke. The new terms reflect current market conditions, I said quietly. They also include clauses for early exit, signage reapproval, and a rental cap that adjusts quarterly based on use of square footage for non-disclosed projects. The CFO didn't even hesitate, nodded once solemnly like a man praying for mercy before the ink dried. No one else moved. Tara's fingers were white around the edge of her notebook. She hadn't looked at me since the sentence. She wouldn't, because there was nothing left to say. She'd tried to strip me of place, of power, of presence. But she forgot one thing. Real authority doesn't ask for a seat. It owns the damn foundation. I turned to leave, then paused at the doorway. No dramatics. No speeches. Just one final line, delivered like a signature. "You tried to pull my seat," I said softly. "Turns out I own the floor." And then I walked out, quietly, firmly, leaving nothing behind but a signed lease, a stunned room, and the permanent echo of leverage earned in silence.